When a tyrannical HOA enforcer tows my car, I dig a moat of revenge. Will my quirky rebellion be enough to unite the neighborhood against her petty rules? As the reality of the situation seeped in, I stood frozen at the foot of my driveway, clutching my steaming mug of coffee that now felt more ceremonial than satisfying. Karen Whitmore, my local HOA despot, was basking in the glory of her small and petty triumph as she directed the tow truck driver with all the authority of a general leading troops into battle. "Looks like your prized possession needs to follow the rules, Jordan," she chirped, her overly polished presence only serving to deepen my annoyance. The absurdity of her smugness was almost comical. Here she was, enforcing regulations like a full-blown dictator over not just my vehicle, but fun itself. Classic HOA behavior, I thought, but then again, it was one thing to have your car towed, and another to let that act go unpunished. Fueled by caffeine and simmering indignation, I stormed up to her, waving my coffee like it was a battle flag. "Karen, have you lost all grip on reality? I parked my car in my own driveway," I gestured wildly, desperately trying to infuse some logic into her thick skull. She merely rolled her eyes, a motion so exaggerated it could have drawn applause at a comedy club. "Oh, Jordan, it's all about the aesthetics. You know the bylaws, the car was non-compliant, and unfortunately, I'm not sorry." She said it with that ridiculous self-satisfaction, as if she had just delivered a life-altering truth instead of an HOA-induced travesty. I couldn't help but scoff, wondering if her next rule would mandate how many leaves could fall on one's lawn at any given time. After she left, grinning like a cat who just caught a mouse, a thunderous idea crackled in my head, a foul-mouthed plan worthy of a sitcom. I needed to show her that my creativity could rival her ridiculousness. A moat, I contemplated. A moat. In the spirit of retaliation, I could turn her pristine, polished lawn into a swamp of sorts. I'd have to dig deep, physically and metaphorically, putting my DIY skills to the test. With Sam's mischief-laden grin flashing in my mind, I knew that this ludicrous plan would have to involve him. After all, if I was going to risk being her next HOA target, I might as well make it a memorable fight. The next Saturday, armed with a shovel, a wheelbarrow, and a bizarre amount of enthusiasm, I enlisted Sam to help me. Clad in Hawaiian attire suited for a tropical vacation, complete with sunglasses, he had a grin that said he was completely bought into the madness of our scheme. "So, how do we want to execute our masterpiece today?" he asked, slapping his leg with glee. In my mind's eye, I could already envision it. A grand expanse of muddy despair dotted with inflatable crocodiles, or perhaps even rubber duckies, just to make a statement about Karen's level of absurdity. Sam, bless him, caught on to the idea and ran with it, eager to embellish my vision while cracking jokes that kept us giggling even while we worked. By the time we had dug out enough dirt to start refilling the patches with water, I couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. Our inadvertent carpentry also meant we had become moat engineers, and by the end of the day, the onlookers, mostly neighbors who had united under the banner of mutual annoyance with Karen, stood at a safe distance trying to stifle their laughter. I looked at Sam, who was kneeling beside me, water splashing up to his knees, and grinned like a kid at a candy store. "Looks like we might just be the HOA's most memorable rebels yet," I chortled, and just as the sun began to dip low in the sky, I approved of our work. The lawn certainly looked different, which is a nice way of saying it resembled a disaster zone with vibes of a neglected petting zoo. The pièce de resistance was the grand unveiling that I planned for the upcoming HOA meeting, where Karen would surely strut in, sporting her oversized sunglasses as if wearing a crown. I could almost see her face as she surveyed her domain, aghast at the transformation. A moat of flickering, inflatable creatures shimmering under the sunset. And just as I anticipated her shriek of indignation and bewilderment, Sam nudged me. "You realize you just started a design revolution, right?" I could only chuckle in response, for I had become a simple man wielding a shovel, redefining the very ethos of HOA yard decor. Surely no potions of Karen's authoritative reign could contain the hilarity soon set to unfold. Would I be branded an outlaw? A rebel? Perhaps just a man defending his driveway? Either way, my folly in the name of revenge felt delightfully rewarding. The grand unveiling day arrived, and my stomach churned with equal parts excitement and trepidation. With the HOA meeting on the horizon and my scheme set to become a legend, or at least a topic of scandal, I donned my most comically rebellious outfit. An old graphic tee that said, "Rebel without a cause," with holes in all the right places, and my trusty pair of jeans, which had accumulated more dirt than fashion sense in the last few weeks. Sam, always the style guru, opted for a vibrant Hawaiian shirt, his way of infusing tropical joy into the courtroom vibes of the HOA meeting. We were the chaos godlings of the evening, ready to serve HOA drama with a side of hilarity. As the sun dipped low, casting a golden hue over the neighborhood, I made my way to Karen's freshly assaulted yard. Our floral decorations at the scene had far surpassed my initial vision. We hadn't just turned her lawn into a swamp, but transformed it into an aquatic wonderland. Sam had, in a stroke of brilliance, added twinkling fairy lights strung between the gnome statues, casting eerie shadows that danced across the saturated grass. I imagined Karen's reaction, her pristine bubble of HOA superiority about to burst in a spectacle of shock and disbelief. I wonder if her gloss finish will melt under the drama. I snickered, just as Sam chimed in with a delightful, or if her sunglasses will crack from the pressure. The meeting commenced in the rigid, overly air-conditioned conference hall, where Karen stood like a Colosseum gladiator preparing for battle, flanked by other board members who consistently nodded and smiled, fully aware of her impending fury. Their expressions shifted to looks of bewilderment as I bustled in alongside Sam, who, to my amusement, had strategically slipped into the back row. The air was taut with anticipation, my plot bubbling under the surface like a boiling cauldron ready to spill its contents. "I'm here to represent the grassroots, the true essence of the community," I announced dramatically, channeling all my latent thespian talent. The noise level dropped as heads turned, Karen's brow knitting together in confusion. It didn't take long for the proverbial shoe to drop. As I laid out my disdain for the draconian HOA rules that dictated our simple, joyful lives, I could see Karen's expression ripple like disturbed water. And as we discussed the importance of aesthetics, don't forget the unexpected benefit of embracing creativity. I gestured towards the projector screen, the meeting's focal point now displaying shocking images. Before and after photos of Karen's lawn, now a living, breathing patch of absurdity. Slides flashed before a bemused audience, each click bringing gasps, laughter, and some scandalized whispering. Karen's mouth moved, though words failed her as she tried to regain her composure. Every chuckle, every rolling eye felt like my own personal victory lap. "Hoarding the rules and poaching everyone's fun comes with consequences, Karen," I exclaimed, feeling that familiar thrill of doing what I loved best, stirring the pot. The members scrambled to stifle their laughs, nodding like bobblehead dolls caught in a light breeze. And for festive flair, my friends, behold the inflatable alligators. With that, I unveiled an inflatable crocodile on a makeshift raft as my pièce de résistance, a true testament to the ridiculousness. We'd even dressed it in a sun hat that matched Karen's signature style. Sam couldn't help himself. He burst into laughter, punctuating the air with, "We have a crocodile in the moat, Karen. Is this compliant with your bylaws?" Despite the impending haze of rage looming over her, Karen regained some semblance of her authoritative composure, though the trembling in her voice gave away her fury. "You can't just... This isn't part of our community standards." The audience had mostly shifted from passive observers to engaged allies. Their expressions oscillated between shock at her audacity and delight in watching her crumble. But is it not a perfect blend of nature and whimsy? An experience that breaks the monotony of perfectly landscaped norms? I countered, feeling emboldened as laughter erupted once more, drowning out any counterattack she might muster. The realization hung in the air. For once, this HOA meeting did not revolve around Karen's rules, but around the joyous defiance of a community fed up with her antics. As the meeting progressed, board members floundered to regain control over the situation, their authority slipping like sand between their fingers. Every moment was thrilling, every chuckle a badge of honor. By the end, I stood amidst a sea of nodding neighbors, the tide of community support swelling around me, the spark of a rebellion, igniting amongst those who had suffered under Karen's irritable gaze for too long. With a dramatic flourish, I concluded, "Let this be a reminder that we can do more than just complain. We can laugh back." The crowd erupted in applause aplenty, drowning out Karen's futile attempts to regain the upper hand. As we left the arena of HOA horror, fist-bumping each supportive neighbor, a weight lifted from my shoulders. Flushed with the sweet victory, I turned to Sam, whose laughter still echoed in my ears. "So, do we consider ourselves the revolutionaries of the neighborhood now?" I asked, reveling in the absurdity of our success. "Absolutely. And next time, we host a rubber duck race," he quipped back, perfectly embodying the lightheartedness of our journey. The sun had set, but our spirits soared higher than ever, and while Karen might still exert her authority, we had proven that sometimes all it takes to rattle a so-called queen is a couple of friends, a shovel, and an unexpected moat. Where would this newfound wave of camaraderie carry us next? As the echoes of laughter faded and the attendees trickled out of the meeting, I could hardly believe the exhilaration surging through me. I stood there momentarily clinging to the podium, basking in the glow of our impromptu rebellion, a victory fueled by unity, and a shared desire to restore some joy into our lives. The glowing bulb of fluorescent lights overhead felt like a spotlight beaming down on me, and for a brief moment, I envisioned myself as an underground rock star, not a mere homeowner plotting minor revenge. "We did it, Sam. Did you see Karen's face?" I exclaimed, turning to see him still snickering, clutching his stomach as he leaned against the wall for support. "Dude, it was priceless," he replied between breathless laughs. "If I were you, I'd start thinking about your next grand performance." His eyes twinkled with mischief, and it was evident he was already concocting outlandish ideas in his head, likely involving gardening gnomes and oversized rubber ducks for further HOA dramatic episodes. However, before we could indulge in our next plot, something struck me. The tables may have turned for now, but Karen wasn't going to take this lying down. With an exaggerated sigh, I added, "Just don't let the inflatable alligators go too far. You know she'll retaliate." Sam grinned, patting my shoulder. The next day dawned bright and sunny, radiating an almost sarcastic cheerfulness that contrasted sharply with my bubbling nerves. I was aware that the HOA meeting had placed a giant glowing target on my back, every golden hour like a spotlight on a stage ready for the next catastrophic encore of Let's Get Revenge on the HOA. I went about my day, surrounded by neighbors who now wore empowering smirks on their faces. They high-fived me, asked for updates, and casually slipped reminders about my next big endeavor. My haphazard DIY spirit was awakening, and my to-do list blossomed. Was it time for a neighborhood block party? Maybe taco trucks dancing through the streets? The possibilities were endless. But then, the shadows cast by the towering palms of trouble loomed once more. That afternoon, as I watered my flower beds, I noticed a rumbling SUV parked ominously across the street. My heart sank as I recognized Karen's steely glare behind the tinted windows, surveying the yard she so loathed. It felt as if I had unwittingly created my own soap opera, complete with plot twists and high drama. Suddenly, I was both star and target. The sense of joy that had carried me through yesterday felt threadbare against the weight of uncertainty. "Looks like someone's plotting," Sam whispered, who happened to show up at that exact moment, and I could see the wheels of mischief turning in his mind. "Have you seen the expression on her face before all this?" I chuckled nervously, standing beside him. She was positively preparing an eviction notice with every glare she threw my way. Just as I spoke, I felt compelled to wave to her, a preemptive strike in our homeowner's chess game. Surprisingly, her lips twisted into a snarl, not the response I had hoped. Sam nudged me with an exaggerated elbow. "Oh boy, time for your encore performance. What happens next? Do I get taco trucks, or do we just dig a trench?" With my heart racing as if I were gearing up for a grand clash, my mind buzzed with strategies that ranged from humorous to outright ludicrous. That evening, barely settling in on my couch, I reviewed our tactics with Sam over leftover pizza. Dressed in my favorite retro game tee that featured a pixelated warrior, I felt like an unlikely hero preparing for the ultimate showdown. What if we remind the board that our beloved community is built on camaraderie and levity? Maybe we could even address the beauty of quirky yards. I mean, come on, who needs cookie-cutter lawns? I said enthusiastically, tossing aside the remnants of my meal like an offering before our newly crowned queen of the HOA. Sam chewed thoughtfully, raising a finger like a Saturday morning cartoon character who had just experienced an epiphany. He grinned and leaned forward. Or better yet, we could paint pink flamingos all around her property as an artistic tribute to creativity. Aqua motifs could become her thing. In the midst of laughter, our brainstorming took wild twists, each idea sparking a new wave of ridiculous inspiration. "Let's give her a taste of the absurd," I proclaimed, and Sam burst into applause, eyes wide gleefully at the potential chaos we were concocting. Our plan took shape, an Art in the Yard festival that would be both a quirky and hearty challenge to Karen's power trip. It would invite every neighbor to join in and turn our entire block into a canvas of whimsical dreams. As night fell, propelled by a shared sense of mischief, I crept outside to scout Karen's front yard. Under the cover of darkness, I could almost hear the gentle hum of creativity sparking in my brain as I envisioned feathered friends adorning her lawn. The following days promised a glorious symphony of personality, a community rising against the monochrome pallor of the HOA's reign. But little did Karen know, with every rebellious act, we were weaving a tapestry of joy and combat in a green war zone that she could never truly control. Our laughter echoed through the neighborhood, beckoning for respite from the mundane as, brimming with delight, I could hardly wait for the artistry to unfold. What tricks awaited just beyond the horizon? With an adrenaline-fueled anticipation swimming in my chest, I plotted the grand Art in the Yard festival, a cacophony of chaos destined to catch Karen off guard. My vision stretched far beyond mere festive decorations. This was about reclaiming our neighborhood from tyranny, albeit through the medium of humor. Sam and I spent hours that night sketching ideas on napkins and leftover pizza boxes, leaving no peculiar thought unexplored. "How about a dinosaur theme?" I suggested, half-jokingly. "You know, some inflatable T-Rexes galloping through her carefully manicured hedges? Definitely an HOA violation." Sam howled with laughter, practically doubling over at the thought of Karen's expression upon discovering a dinosaur invasion on her front lawn, surrounded by plush flamingos, nodding in approval like tenured faculty members of an elite art institution. The following week, our little art project began taking shape with surprising enthusiasm from our neighbors. They joined in with pink flamingos by the dozen, strategically placed as if to communicate an elaborate choral war dance of sorts. Shimmery silver streamers adorned Mrs. Thompson's mailbox, catching the sunlight and dancing in the breeze, while Mr. Simmons donned an apron to grill up hot dogs, because obviously a neighborhood shindig requires culinary sustenance. Each evening, laughter reverberated through the streets as we collaborated, the scent of barbecued goodness mingling with the joy of camaraderie. It felt like a rebellion against nature itself, and I was enthralled by the absurdity of it all. I wasn't merely participating, I was leading a movement. Soon, not just the homeowners, but their children began crafting whimsical sculptures from recycled materials, all under the watchful eyes of the hopeful flamingos awaiting their pink-painted acceptance. As the day of the festival approached, a whimsical feeling akin to Christmas morning tugged at my heartstrings. Karen's reaction lingered in my mind like an itch I couldn't scratch. She was undoubtedly preparing her rebuttal, a looming storm ready to rain on our parade. Hatred and disdain radiated from her as a constant backdrop. Yet that made the festival even more delectable, like a cherry on top of a sundae made entirely of rebellion. On the eve of the grand event, Sam and I took leisurely strolls to survey the unconventional preparations being made. There's nothing more satisfying than knowing we're transforming her lawn into a collaborative canvas for happiness, I declared, not noticing the bemused expression of the florist as we walked past. Little did I know, our excitement only fueled the fire of her impending wrath, ultimately leading to a hilariously extravagant showdown. Finally, the big day arrived. Bright colors lit up the streets. Art installations dotted lawns like an extravaganza of creativity gone wild. Children shrieked with joy, running about while their parents set up tacos and churros along the sidewalk. I was practically vibrating with excitement, but the sight of Karen's house, still and silent, as if it had been cursed, struck a chord of nervous anticipation within me. I imagined her surveying the vibrant chaos we'd wrought, as if we were an alien force, invading her manicured sanctuary. At noon, a bell rang, signaling the unveiling of our art. A collective gasp echoed, and the neighborhood fell silent, as a hushed anticipation enveloped us. Would she emerge from her lair? Would she descend upon us like an avenging angel determined to restore order in her twisted version of paradise? Just when I thought it couldn't get any better, Karen's figure finally appeared at her threshold, bathed in the unmistakable glow of sunlight. Her mouth hung open in disbelief, shoes mismatched as if she had scrambled out of a serious confrontation with reality itself. With a dramatic flourish that would make any Broadway star envious, she stomped down the porch steps like an unhinged force of nature. "This is a violation of HOA regulations," she bellowed, her expression a clinical mix of disdain and determination, which only deepened the chuckles erupting from the crowd. Meanwhile, Sam, pretending to hold an imaginary microphone, turned the oversight into a breaking news segment. And here we have Karen, our local HOA hero, confronting the anarchy of fun. How will she respond, folks? The chortles crescendoed into laughter that set the air ablaze in spirited defiance against her attempts to quash our joy. Something marvelous happened. Infinity rippled outward into our lives like a stone, cast into a stream. Laughter and support from my previously quiet neighbors blossomed into an unstoppable wave of unity. Karen's authority, once sullied but feared, played the punchline to our comedy of errors. Children danced around grown-ups dripping with art supplies, each laugh peeling away the layers of entitlement that Karen wore like armor. In that delightful chaos, I found a sense of power growing inside me. We were not just homeowners anymore. We were a community exhibiting beautiful synchronicity in the face of her disdain. I even spotted a group of our neighbors placing an inflatable flamingo right on Karen's front porch, creating an ostentatious centerpiece that sought to symbolically transcend the barrier of entitlement entirely. That afternoon, as the sun dipped toward the horizon with stunning oranges and reds painting the sky, I glanced at Karen. For the first time, I felt she wasn't observing my laughter with contempt, but rather with pure exasperation. Perhaps even curiosity stirred behind her stern facade. Meanwhile, I couldn't help but feel triumphant. Our little art invasion looked stunning, with laughter ringing like church bells above the usual neighborhood grievances. And as I stood there, taking in the absurdity of my ingenious plot against the oppressive HOA, the realization struck me. Never again would I let our neighborhood be subdued by the suffocating embrace of entitlement. This was just the beginning, and where would my creativity lead us next? Would we reinvent neighborhood rules altogether? The possibilities felt as endless as the night sky awaiting its first stars. What joyous chaos could possibly follow? The laughter poured out like a flood, washing over the formerly stony road that led to Karen's kingdom of meticulously trimmed shrubs. I had never witnessed anything quite like it. My neighbors, normally reserved and mousy, had transformed into boisterous revelers under the banner of inflatable flamingos and artistic defiance. As I stood there, basking in the glow of unfiltered joy, I caught a glimpse of my partner in crime, Sam, whose smirk was wide enough to rival the Cheshire Cat's. "I think we've officially declared war on HOA standards," he hollered enthusiastically, winking at a nearby group of giggling kids who had just tied glittery streamers to his Hawaiian shirt. The sheer absurdity of it all felt liberating, and for once, I was ready to let go of the petty grievances and simply savor the moment, headache or not. What a beautiful ruckus. However, in the blink of an eye, the party atmosphere faltered as the crowd turned toward the spectacle unfolding near Karen's porch. Her internal struggle was palpable. She was caught between unleashing her decades' worth of pent-up anger over the flamingo invasion and the growing popularity of our artistic rebellion. This day was destined to be tragic, I whimsically thought, picturing Karen as a storm cloud darkening over our backyard picnic. Yet to my surprise, she didn't storm away in defeat. Instead, she positioned herself like a dramatic lead in a tragedy, arms crossed and eyebrows furrowed, commanding the attention of our artistic coup. It was both hilarious and cringeworthy to see her trying to regain control, a woman accustomed to being the gatekeeper of sanity amid the chaos. Yet that very authority felt like it was slipping through her manicured fingers. As Sam continued his comedic commentary, I leaned closer to catch Karen's bewildered expression, which gently danced between fury and disbelief. You know, Karen, you really ought to consider a themed party of your own. Maybe Rules and Regulations Under the Stars could be an annual event. I quipped loudly, eliciting choruses of laughter from my newfound friends. Karen's mouth floundered like a fish out of water, moments away from a retort, but I knew she couldn't compete with the sheer joy surrounding us. I could practically hear gears grinding in her mind as she tried to reconcile how a comedic circus had sprung to life, where once she reigned supreme. All those years of being the neighborhood's self-appointed tsunami of order had landed her knee-deep in a sea of inflatable hilarity and unrestrained laughter. Oh, the delicious irony. But my victory dance was cut short when Karen finally found her voice. "You think this is funny?" she exclaimed, her tone dripping with indignation. "I'll have you know that this is a direct violation of HOA protocols." Someone in the crowd called out, "Maybe you should paint over the regulations with a rainbow of compliance," followed by another chant, "Karen, Karen, lighten up." It was unexpectedly delightful to see her frustration morph from indignation into mere pompous irritation. I leaned against the front fence, arms crossed as though I was inspecting a fine work of art. In that moment, I felt a thrill watching the realization dawn on her. No wall of entitlement could hold back the tide of genuine community spirit once it decided to flow. And just like that, I turned the tables on the neighborhood bully, watching as it became clear that she wouldn't have the same clout that day. While my inner voice was preening, relishing the rebellion, I knew the tide was turning, and I had to maintain momentum. Raising my coffee mug, now a makeshift authority scepter, I boldly proposed a toast. To reclaim our neighborhood and transform the art of living together, where a little chaos goes a long way, I declared victoriously, every word bursting with triumph. The cheers and clinks of soda cans echoed in the air, echoing the sentiment of unity that Karen had continuously stifled. Suddenly, she wasn't just the neighbor I had battled against. She was a part of the art festival now, whether she liked it or not. Faces brightened in acceptance, and for a split second, I sensed a shift within her as she pondered what it meant to be part of the enjoyment, instead of waving her finger of reprimand. The scene was surreal as I caught Karen's eye, and for that brief moment, I felt something almost akin to camaraderie. In spite of our differences, the neighborhood had embraced its own absurdity, with an openness we had long deemed whimsical. Even Karen was inadvertently swept up in our collective insistence on joy, a peculiar transformation from enforcer to spectator, or was it more of an unwilling participant? The laughter continued to echo through the air, finally chipping away at the layers of acidity that had painted her interactions with the world. A little salty seasoning never hurt, after all. Yet, I wondered, could she possibly embrace this newfound spirit of community? Was there a faint chance of her trading in her tailored khakis for a pair of flip-flops? As the afternoon sun bathed us in its warm glow, the embers of our rebellion sparked more hopeful thoughts. Maybe I could plant a seed of change big enough to uproot the overbearing rules she had imposed, one flamingo at a time. Even the kids had gravitated toward her, presenting her with glimmering art pieces, clumsily crafted yet brimming with sincere expressions of their creativity. Would she crack a smile? Or perhaps, dare I dream, would she even let loose a faint chuckle? As her expression morphed from stoic to bemused, I felt a thrill of anticipation, an inkling that the day of judgment was not far off. Would she rise to the occasion, or would she retreat like a startled crab into the cold depths of her shell? The finale awaited us, ready to leap into the next act of absurd chaos and potential connection, and I couldn't wait to witness what twist lay ahead. As the laughter bubbled around us like fizzy soda, I couldn't help but survey the incredulous scene unfolding before my very eyes. Karen, once the inflexible sentinel of HOA sanity, was now navigating a sea of inflatable flamingos, glittered streamers, and children vying for her attention with their crayon-decorated peace offerings. Who knew a riotous backyard could catalyze such a transformation? While a parade of giggling neighbors relished their newfound freedom, I couldn't shake the sense that we might just be living on borrowed time before Karen decided to boil over like a kettle left unattended. The invisible tension in the air was palpable, and yet my optimism thrived in the aftermath of chaos. Could this day actually yield more than just a few chuckles at her expense? My curiosity was piqued. Throughout the festivities, I slyly observed Karen's metamorphosis as she cautiously accepted a hand-painted rock from a shy little girl wearing unicorn pajamas. The child, untainted by Karen's difficult years of rule, presented her as if she were a queen receiving a tribute. I sat back with bated breath. Would she reject this adorable gesture? Would the icy fortress she'd built around her heart finally crack? A fleeting moment passed where I saw the corners of her mouth twitch, an attempt to suppress a smile that was undoubtedly not part of the Karen Whitmore playbook. Suddenly, I realized this awkward situation was rapidly becoming my favorite kind of suspense, one that could end in absurdity or enlightenment. Amidst the colorful chaos, I felt Sam sidle up beside me, his eyes twinkling like a kid in a candy store. I thought a moat was your big move, but this? He gestured grandly toward the absurdity. This is next level. If I didn't know better, I'd say you've given her a heart attack. I chuckled, sipping my coffee and watching the show unfold with a smug satisfaction. In an impressive twist of cosmic karma, it seemed like every smile we elicited chipped away at the sculpted facade Karen wore, revealing a hint of humanity underneath, though I still wasn't ready to hand her a crown just yet. Would there be a deeper sense of justice waiting for us as we all joined together in this hilarious act of rebellion against her draconian rule? But just as I felt like we were moving toward a potential peace treaty over inflatable geese and festive cake, a glint of determination lit up Karen's eyes. I braced myself as the warrior within her awakened. She had quite the track record of reigniting her authority when it felt threatened. All right, everyone, she boomed, breaking through the laughter like a thunderstorm in the sunny skies. You all know this isn't compliant with neighborhood regulations. My heart sank and the joyous atmosphere momentarily dulled, fears of closure creeping back into our comradeship. However, instead of resorting to her typical tirade about our recreational infractions, there was something different in her voice this time, bold yet perhaps just a hint of uncertainty. The crowd held its collective breath as Karen glanced around, unsure of how to reclaim her realm without shattering the burgeoning spirit we had all forged together. I signaled Sam to pay close attention, my sense of humor bubbling at the fore. Karen, I called out, maybe you could think about holding a neighborhood contest. Best lawn decoration. It was a Hail Mary of a suggestion, but what did we have to lose? Through an expression of shock, I anticipated her indignation, but deep within, I felt the prospect of unfurling humor, like unrolling a giant reel of brightly colored party streamers. The glimmer of endless potential flickered in Karen's eyes, and just as I feared that she would reject my idea outright, a new expression washed over her face. Was that excitement? How about this? Anyone who participates can attend the first official HOA lawn decoration tour, complete with judging, refreshments, and prizes. The corners of my mouth nearly split my face in two as the crowd erupted in cheers. I felt the bubbling waves of disbelief and triumph. Karen had accidentally stepped into a new role for the first time in her life. An unexpected camaraderie emerged, a spark of resilience that hinted at a future outside of compliance. The party roared back to life as the atmosphere shifted, revelers bouncing between ideas for their decoration contests, planning outfits, and considering lawn care with mirth instead of dread. Karen, nestled in the middle of the raucous crowd, clutched her prize, offering like a comedic performance blooming on stage. Never had her tailored khakis seemed so accommodating. Even the children grew excited, imagining their whimsical crafts sprouting like a garden of creativity and collective rebellion against HOA tyranny. At that moment, I knew I had successfully flipped a patriarchal script turned upside down, and every burst of laughter steadily rebuilt our neck of the woods into something uniquely ours, a celebration of significance in whimsical proportions. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky a riot of shimmering colors, I took a step back to survey my domain. My dreams of vengeance had morphed into unity and shared laughter, and the HOA had transformed from my nemesis into co-conspirators in joyous rebellion. Victory didn't summon images of petty revenge, but rather the warmth of a new community blooming under the chaotic brilliance of creative freedom. Who knew the potential for laughter and friendship could catalyze a group once shackled by rules into a joyful medley of lawns adorned with every flamingo, unicorn, and whimsical dream? Indeed, one bloody lawn ornament might just save us all.